What's up, everybody? Good morning. Welcome to Philly on PHLY. As always, sponsored by Bet Parks. Eagles still 2.5-point favorites right now on the Bet Parks app over the Giants. How about this number? The Ravens are 20.5 favorites over the Browns on Saturday. How about Notre Dame? Notre Dame? Penn State. Oh, what a college football matchup. Notre Dame early 1.5-point favorites. We'll talk about that coming up here in a little bit on a football Friday that nobody cares about the game on Sunday. And that will reflect in our conversations today. We'll have all of our picks, our locks coming up here. Wanted to start with Nick Sirianni. Tyler and I have actually had this conversation off the air because we're like, all right, like this is a viable conversation. It's just pretty much when it comes down, right? And so it's right now. So Jeremy Fowler, ESPN, NFL Insider, blah, 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 writes the following. Nick Sirianni has quieted the preseason noise with the Eagles' 3-13 season. With a first-round playoff exit, reignite talks about his job status. It's hard to say, but it's a question some people around the league are wondering. Sirianni's 47-20 record is impressive, yet his standing was a talking point coming off a 2023 campaign, and he doesn't have a contract extension in place. The sideline and on-field spats are sort of hard to ignore. Any firing here would be a sizable upset, but if we're talking surprises, this would be one to list because his status was a regular debate 4 months ago. So, word salad removed. If Nick Sirianni or if the Eagles lose in the wild card round, is Nick Sirianni's job in jeopardy? And I would love to say that he's 47-20. They've been to the playoffs in every year that he's been the head coach, went to the Super Bowl. But then you could also point out that in those 4 seasons he went to the playoffs, he would have lost in the first round in 3 or 4 of those seasons. And by the way, I don't expect this to happen, and I'm not trying to will this to happen or anything else. It is interesting because it's being noted by a ESPN national reporter, like, hey, what happens in this scenario? People around the league are talking about it. Well, I can tell you this, that I can sit here right now and say, I don't think Nick Sirianni gets fired unless he would totally melt down in the playoffs and they would come out. He would make poor decisions. He would go for field goals when he shouldn't go for field goals. He would go for it when he shouldn't go for it, etc. I think he still saves his job, and then next season becomes a, hey, you just can't make the playoffs. You have to actually win games in the playoffs because let's be honest. The window's wide open. This is the year with Saquon Barkley playing the way he played. Typically, when you come off of a season with this many carries and this much production as a running back, you don't have the same type of season next year. This might be the best season Saquon Barkley is going to have as a Philadelphia Eagle. Hey, go figure he rushed for 2,000 yards. That's going to be tough to top. Zach Bond, is he back? You know, like this is a really, really good roster. And if you don't win or you lose in the first round of the playoffs, man, that's bad. I can tell you this. It would be a hell of a lot easier right now to say his job's safe than if they actually lose the game. You want to talk about heat and you want to talk about noise, let the Eagles lose in the first round, either to Washington or Green Bay. Let them lose the game and tell me that Nick Sirianni's job is safe. And then we would have to revisit this conversation. It is a little bit concerning still that Jalen Hurts has not practiced. Still in concussion protocol. I expect him to play next week. But if he's still foggy and he's still not even able to practice or get out there, even in a limited capacity, you got to worry about that a little bit. But the Eagles will not play their starters coming up here on Sunday. So everybody is going to be healthy for their first round matchup against the Packers or Washington, and that will include Dallas Goedert, who is expected to be back, which is a big thing. So it's something to talk about, and really the question is, should his job be 100% safe if they were to lose in the opening round? And here's my easy answer: yes, it should be safe. And public opinion won't share that if they were to lose it, but he's done enough. And this team has had enough success. And sorry, Nick Sirianni deserves a lot of credit for the way this team is playing and the way this team has played. So it'd be harder to make the case if they were to lose, but Nick Sirianni's job will be safe and should be safe, even if they were to lose early in the playoffs. All right, let's get to some silliness here with Dan Orlovsky this time. Saquon Barkley, he should go for the record. The Eagles should start him. The Eagles should play their starters. It's the record. They should play it. It matters, blah, 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 blah. Yesterday on Get Up, I love Get Up, even though I think we're on the air during Get Up, and I would never watch the show anyway. I can't stand Greenberg, but I think he does a really good job with the show. And as all of the regular ESPN shows, I would say this is it's watchable. The First Take, not watchable. PTI, like whatever. But like at least with Get Up, I feel like you're getting pretty good information and you're not getting hot takes all of the time. But Dan Orlovsky, if you think about it, if you're going to get the big contract from ESPN, you got to play the game. So Tyler and I were talking about this before we came on the air, and it feels like a lot of these guys that initially when they come on and they start doing this, that they're a lot more pure in their analysis and what they do. And then the longer they're doing it, and then as they get the new contract and they get the big money, they start to play the game more than a little bit. And that means, hey, you got to have something every day. You got to have takes. You got to have opinions, even if half of the time you sound silly. So here's some silliness with Dan Orlovsky. Here's yesterday on Get Up, and they're talking about the Saquon Barkley thing and the Eagles not playing their starters and Saquon Barkley. Here it is.
And Andy Reid always rests his guys when they have everything locked up. All that is well and good, but they don't always have a record of this magnitude that also hangs in the balance. What's your reaction to the decision?
Better go win the whole thing then. I get it.
Stop it.
Football-wise,
Just stop it right there. You better go win the whole thing then. So Greenberg, with a record of this magnitude, what's your reaction? You better go win the whole thing then. All right, Dan. So let me get this straight. If they would have played Saquon Barkley and he would have broken the record, now they don't have to win the whole thing, right? That's what you're saying. Now, if you lose, it's not that big of a deal because Saquon Barkley won the rushing record. How idiotic is that statement? And that's the kind of idiotic statements you make when you're forced to come on the air and have contrary opinions. You can roll up. I mean, think about that. Think about what Dan Orlovsky said right there. Well, you better go win the whole thing then. Okay, you're right. You're right, because if they don't win the Super Bowl, we can always lean on Saquon Barkley. Well, he got the rushing record. I'm not that concerned. I'm not disappointed. It's not a big deal, man. All right, continue with the nonsense here with on Get Up. Here it goes.
I get it. Football-wise, I get it. The fan in me is bummed about it because he's so close. And I understand the most important thing is going to win the Super Bowl. Better go get it because you don't want to go for two for him. You don't want to pass on, having his name and your team and your name and your franchise attached to that record and then not also win the Super Bowl. So if you're feeling Nick Sirianni, I 1000%
Has anybody mentioned the LA Rams with Eric Dickerson's record? One time. Has anybody said, the LA Rams and Eric Dickerson? Even one time? It'd be great if Saquon Barkley would get the record. I would love it. As a fan, I would love it. It'd be great. It'd be fun against the Giants. It'd be awesome. They don't need the game. Nobody cares. Nobody cares about the Eagles and the franchise stuff. All right, continue with more silliness.
Well, that's it. That's what we've got. That's where he wrapped up, and then they tried to. Like you said, he tried to hedge a little bit and
then Greenberg comes on and goes, right. Well, that takes him out of the MVP conversation. Oh, so because of the MVP conversation. Let's keep him in there. Yeah, MVP conversation. And then whoever the other guy that was on the show that was just like, well, as a football fan, I want to see. We know that. In a perfect world, they'd be playing for the division, and he could go out, and he could run for 130 yards against the Giants and shove it up the Giants' butt, and they could get everything, get the record, the Eagles going to the playoffs, and the number one seed, whatever the dream scenario is. It's not the scenario. So, Tyler Zulu, I'll bring you in before we get the headlines here in a second. Now, would you agree that now the Eagles are forced, because they're sitting Saquon Barkley, now they have to win the whole thing? Because if they would have played him and gotten the record, then nobody would really care about winning the Super Bowl. Right.
So Jamie and I talked about this yesterday, and it's like, why do the two things have to be mutually exclusive? like there is an infinite amount of scenarios in which any one thing or multiple things could happen at the same time, right? Saquon Barkley could not play this week, and the Eagles could win the Super Bowl. Saquon Barkley could not play this week, and the Eagles could not win the Super Bowl, including losing any step of the way. Saquon Barkley could play this week, and the Eagles would. Like, all of these things could be true, hypothetically speaking, right? But the land that we're living in now is that the Eagles are not going to play Saquon Barkley, and they're not as concerned, at least the front office and the head coach are not as concerned about the record as they are about having a healthy, rested roster heading into the wild card round. And a really good Eagles team has a chance at competing for a Super Bowl. Only one team wins the championship in any league every year. It is a lottery ticket at best when you enter the playoffs. Now, you might have a leg up. You might have the first two numbers of the Powerball by having the bye, right? Or you might have the Powerball number by being the best roster in the game, but you still have to get the rest of the lottery ticket if we're going to use that, cliche example. Yeah. There's no guarantee in the NFL, but what I do know is that if Saquon Barkley is healthy and rested, the Eagles have a better chance to make a deep playoff run, potentially play for a Super Bowl, potentially win a Super Bowl than if he wasn't.
Yeah. I mean, the risk reward, the reward is he gets the rushing title. The risk is that he pulls a hamstring or one or your other. I mean, we've been over this. It's at this point, this is just because he said it yesterday, I bring it up. But so here's really the only arguments that should have been made on that show. If you're Dan Orlovsky and you want him to play, which is, listen, Buffalo played their starters last year. Andy Reid played their, whatever it is, find a team that played their starters when they didn't need to because you feel like that you need to roll into the playoffs. Not, oh, well, now you got to win the Super Bowl. You're right, Tyler. They're not, one has nothing to do with the other. The Eagles can lose or win the Super Bowl with Saquon Barkley playing or not playing. It's nothing to do with anything. Whatever. I can't wait for this game, so we don't have to worry about it. And we can watch. Who's the guy that they signed that I didn't even know was on the team until he had a couple rushes last week? Maybe he gets 100 yards.
Oh, Davis.
Yeah, he's hyphen. Not Elliott Short Parks. It's another hyphen. Anyway. All right, we'll put him in your fantasy roster, even though nobody's playing this week. All right, dude, listen, a ton of stuff is going on right now. And we'll get to all of those with headlines with Tyler Zudley. Tyler, what do you got?
Yeah, let's do it. Our headlines are brought to us by our friends over at Glad Hair Restoration. And they're not just about restoration. It's about innovation as well. And if you want to improve how you look and how you feel, head on over to gladhairmctr.com or call 610-980-4000 to get started. Let's start with the college football ranks. Yesterday, the college football semifinal is set after Notre Dame defeats Georgia, as you brought up a little bit earlier in the show, 23-10. And it felt like a pretty stout Notre Dame game throughout. Now, Riley Leonard only threw for 90 yards, but this is kind of how Notre Dame wins games. They run the football effectively. They play good defense. And they ask Riley Leonard not to make too many mistakes. A kick return touchdown to start the third quarter, to start the second half. It was 13-3. Notre Dame jumps out to the 23 lead. Georgia brings it back to 20-10, but it ends up being a 23-10 final for Notre Dame. So the Final Four are set. The Orange Bowl is going to be Penn State and Notre Dame, and the Cotton Bowl is Ohio State and Texas. With the opportunity to go play for a national championship on the line. So the teams that end up advancing to the semifinals, the Final Four, if you will, were ranked within the college football playoff 6, 7, 8, or 5, 6, 7, and 8.
You don't want that bye.
We're going to end up having the MLB. Is it bad to have the bye? And it's like, right. No, not in football. It's not.
Well, two of your teams that had byes were inferior teams, so sometimes it just ends up working out like that. And frankly, Georgia hasn't played well all year, and we both had Notre Dame in the game. So Uncle Jamie did not. He was 7-0 entering yesterday's game in the college football playoff. He was 3-0 this past round, and then he lost because he had Georgia last night. But 7-1 in the college football locks. So Notre Dame's point and a half favorites over Penn State. Man, I haven't been this excited for a playoff game for a college football game in a while.
Yeah, this is going to be a good game. It's two good defenses. It's two teams who run the football effectively. I think Drew Aller is a much better quarterback than Riley Leonard, but both guys are tasked with not, turning the football over. I think it's two excellent run defenses. It's going to kind of be, the impenetrable force meets the immovable object or whatever that phrase is. This is a good game. And I think if you would have told me 6 weeks ago that either Notre Dame or Penn State was going to be playing for the national title, I probably would have told you were nuts. But one of these two teams are going to go play. I don't think it's going out on a limb. I think one of these two teams are going to go play Ohio State in the national championship game. But it's two teams that I did not expect to be in this particular spot that have played some good football down the stretch.
Yeah, and I can't believe I'll be rooting for Notre Dame ever, but that's what I'm going to be doing. When I was a kid, so I remember the Penn State winning the national championship in '86. It's weird how you had these memories, but I just remember I was leaving my basketball game, and it was right before the Fiesta Bowl, and I just remember like in the parking lot, somebody that was playing, his older brother started yelling, "We are!" And then they win national championships with John Schaefer as the quarterback and DJ Dozier, Shane Conlon. So I've always been a bandwagon Penn State follower. And then Notre Dame, for whatever reason, I had this Notre Dame winter hat. And so I kind of like Notre Dame as a kid.
You're one of the fraud fans too.
But that was probably the last time I liked Notre Dame, which was 1988. But they had really notable players. Like Lou Holtz, Tony Rice was the quarterback of the national championship team. You had Jerome Bettis, the bus. You had these running backs that were, when it was a running back, football was a running back league. That's who the stars were. And Alan Pinkett was a 1980s Notre Dame running back. He played with the Oilers later on. So yeah, I like the Miami Hurricanes in the early 90s because they were good. So like, because you don't really have a local team here, I just kind of liked whatever team that was out there. But yeah, like, so I will be rooting hard for Notre Dame. You know why, Tyler?
Because you hate me.
No, well, part of it is because it's all because of the Penn State fan. You know why? Because whenever I give my analysis on Penn State and James Franklin, the Penn State people always say, "Oh, well, you went to Temple. You're just jealous. You don't have blah, blah, blah." And it's like, did anybody realize how little I give a damn about Temple or Temple football? But to play along with the bit, I have to support Notre Dame because Al Golden is the defensive coordinator of Notre Dame. So how could I not support an Al that really rebuilt the program before Matt Rule came in? Al Golden did a great job with Temple.
Yeah, Al Golden's hugely important to the history of Temple football, and I know it's not like this elite level program, but I mean, you're talking about a team that was probably on the precipice of maybe folding before Al Golden,
well, I
right?
wish they would have.
Well,
Bobby
different
Wallace
conversation.
tried to do that. Anyway, so I'm excited for the game.
So that's your Final Four. That game will be Thursday night. Texas and Ohio State will be on Friday night. So we'll talk more about that throughout the week. I'm sure we'll chat with Uncle Jamie about those games. Do you want to get to the two local games that happened last night because they weren't fun?
Yes, let's do it.
All right, let's start with the Sixers. Sixers lose a back-to-back. They lose both games of the back-to-back. This one was not particularly competitive. Golden State wins 139-105. Golden State scores at least 33 points in every quarter of this one. They dropped 35 twice, 36 and 33 in the second quarter. The Sixers were down 16 at the end of one. Same score at the end of two, down 16. They were down 25 at the end of three. Joel Embiid was pretty good in this one, 28 points, 14 boards. They did have 5 players in double figures, Paul George with 19, but they were never really competitive. The Golden State had 7 players in double figures yesterday.
Yeah.
Steph Curry had 30, Jonathan Kuminga with 20, Dennis Schroeder had 15, Wiggins and Green with 15.
It's one of those nights, man.
Yeah, and here's the thing. I think people probably a lot of people writing about this morning. This felt like it could have been that scheduled loss, quote unquote, if you don't bury yourself in a 3-14 hole to start the year.
Right.
You've dug yourself out pretty well. You had won at one point 10 of 14 games to go from 3-14 to 13-17. And that's a pretty excellent mark. Now you've lost back-to-back games on back-to-back nights. in very different ways. Like, you should have beaten Sacramento 2 nights ago, and then last night you got nothing. I mean, you had nothing. This was not a close game.
Sacramento's a tough one because, like you said, you had that right there and you lost it. Last night, I don't think the Sixers are a good matchup with the Warriors when they're shooting. And they were shooting last night. So, like, whatever.
Well, they're back on the East Coast at least tomorrow. They'll take on Brooklyn for the final game of this 6-game road trip that started all the way back on Christmas. That tips off at 6 o'clock tomorrow. They'll start a 4-game homestand on Monday, January 6th. Flyers, also not a very particularly strong performance. They did jump out to a 1-0 lead, but they fall to the Vegas Golden Knights 5-2 in this one. Goals from Tyson Forster and Travis Konechny. John, I think, I know he had the I don't want to play in Lehigh Valley. I'll go back to Russia if you try to send me down to Lehigh Valley argument, like he's trying to pull that card over the Flyers. But Alexei Kolosov, again, last night was not particularly strong. Just an 84 save percentage, 4 goals on 26 shots. I think at this point, I know that Sam Erson's hurt right now, and they're kind of, this is what they have to work with. I'm not sure how much longer of a lead Alexei Kolosov gets at the NHL level right now. Yeah,
then go back to Russia is what I would say.
And listen, Vegas is a good team. They've won 7 of their last 8. They're 26-9-3. They have a ton of goal scorers, a ton of different guys who can, fill it up quickly. Eichel with 2 points last night. Mark Stone with 2 points last night. And Ilya Samsonov had 23 saves on 25 shots. Long West Coast trip, a much better team. This is kind of one of those games you expect the Flyers to lose, but I don't think Alexei Kolosov helped them last night.
Nope. All right. Well, there you go. Anything else there, Tyler?
No, I right. Like K-Red brings it up. He's a young guy. He probably should be playing in the AHL, right? But to have this like strong arm
trying to use leverage, brother,
where you say I'm not going. I don't know what the plan. I don't know what the plan is going to be for the next, like the immediate future, at least.
All right, coming up, every NFL playoff scenario heading into the weekend. Also, 6 Eagles made the Pro Bowl. Who got snubbed? We'll evaluate. That's coming up right after this Philly with John Marks. Don't go anywhere. Central City Toyota. I was just talking about Uncle Jamie. 7-1. Hey, listen, you need a reason to go to Central City Toyota and get a brand spanking new certified Toyota. Well, Uncle Jamie's really, really good at college football. I said this when we started the segment. I said he knows more college football than anybody. Anybody that I've ever met, he follows and he knows more college football. And look at that, 7-1 in the playoffs so far. But if you're in the market for a new certified, pre-owned certified Toyota, Central City Toyota, centralcitytoyota.com in the heart of University City, 55 years on Chestnut Street. I love using this line. When you're in business in the same spot for 55 years, you're doing something right. Yeah, you're doing something right. Bottom line, people are coming to you, repeat customer. And there's no pricing games. Everything is up front, totally transparent process, because they know if you're happy with your experience and you're happy with your car, then you're going to bring it for service. Then you're going to tell your friends, you're going to tell your family, you're going to tell your neighbors, you're going to buy your next car there, CentralCityToyota.com. My Uncle Jamie is the general manager. He's there right now. So if you need an oil change, you need your car service, you need new tires like I got, it's going on 2 months ago now. CentralCityToyota.com. And if you work in the Center City area, you can actually get your car serviced. They'll come pick it up, take it, get it serviced, drop it back off. You didn't even know it happened. You don't have to sit in a dealership or in the wherever on a Saturday waiting for hours because you don't have time to do it during the week. Get it done. You don't even know it. By appointment basis only at CentralCityToyota.com. Largest parts and service dealer in the entire city of Philadelphia. That's right. Check them out. CentralCityToyota.com. All right. As I mentioned earlier on the BetParks app right now, Eagles, 2.5-point favorite. So now it's down to 2, I think. 2.5. I got to check. It was updated this morning. Over the Giants. Love the Giants this on Sunday. Love the Giants. Take the points. And I would do it now before the line goes down a little bit more. The Ravens, 20.5 favorites over the Browns. Are you kidding me? I'd stay away from that, but I would take the Ravens. And as I mentioned before, Notre Dame, 1.5 favorites over Penn State. I think we're going to win by more than 1.5. Yes, I said we. I'm a member of Notre Dame coming up here. What about this?
Fraud.
What about headline entertainment at Parks Casino? Number one casino in Pennsylvania, right in the Philly burbs, right off of 95, right off the turnpike, close to everywhere. Tickets are on sale right now for these headliners. I think Tyler just got his tickets for Larry the Cable Guy. May 16th. Comedian Ron White, March 20th. Oh, I'm counting down the days. The reggae sounds of Shaggy. January 18th. You think I'm kidding. I love Shaggy. Jerry Cantrell from Alice in Chains. So you got great music. You got great comedy. How about a magician? Michael Carbonero. That's March 8th. Country star Lee Brice, March 22nd. What about dinner and drinks before the show? What about you just want a great dinner, right? Liberty Bell Gastropub. Amazing burgers, wings, sandwiches, things like that. The Parks Grill Steakhouse. High-end steakhouse. Great cuts of meat. I've eaten there on multiple occasions. Amazing dinner. Bamboo Noodle House and more. ParksCasino.com. Buy tickets for all shows. Parks Casino, this is how you win. You must be 21. Gambling problem. Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Hoo-ah. All right. So, I didn't even know it was coming down. It was shortly after I think we got off the air yesterday. But the Eagles were named, the Pro Bowlers were named. Now, normally when you're one of the better teams in the NFL, you get a lot of Pro Bowlers. And the Eagles had a lot of Pro Bowlers. All right, so check it out. Any real surprises here? I don't think so. So Saquon Barkley, of course. Lane Johnson, perennial Pro Bowler. Jalen Carter had been talked about ad nauseum in every broadcast about how much he dominated. Not surprised. Zach Bond, first time, but he had been so good. He really should be in the conversation for the Defensive Player of the Year. Not surprised there. Landon Dickerson, who has a reputation of being one of the best interior offensive linemen in the league. So not surprised there. He had made it last year. Cam Jurgens, the first timer. So I got to say, does this take away from Jason Kelce? Is this the center of the Eagles is just going to be a perennial Pro Bowler? Cam Jurgens in his first year as a starter makes the Pro Bowl. Tyler, are you surprised at Cam Jurgens making the Pro Bowl?
No, I don't want to say surprised, but I'm kind of pleasantly happy about it because he has been really good this year. I think, a lot of people have noted that the Eagles have had to replace Jason Kelce and Fletcher Cox in, some capacity. Cox with, internal defensive line rotation, and then Jason Kelce is your every down center. And they've done it fairly seamlessly with Cam Jurgens and Jalen Carter was playing. So it's not like he's replacing Fletcher Cox, but he's getting additional snaps because of Fletcher's retirement. But it's really incredible what the team has been able to do with just kind of cycling in the next level of talent. The one with Cam Jurgens that I think is so impressive is this offensive line has not missed a beat, not only having a new center, but also moving your guard to center and bringing in a guy who's never played guard before in his life, and he's played well.
Great. Yeah,
and it's just a really great culmination of the Baldy talked about it yesterday. Like the way that this offensive line unit has played, despite the fact that they've had movement, and Jordan Mailata's missed time, and Lane Johnson missed a game. And Fred Johnson played decently in their stead.
He did.
And you've got guys like Tyler Steen, who you trust if you need to use as your backups. Like this team really does go probably seven, maybe 8 deep, but 7 deep at the offensive line position. Some teams are going 3 or 4, and they're got turnstiles at the guard position or at the tackle position.
Right.
It's really impressive what this team has been able to do, especially considering the fact that they've had to replace an all-pro level center this offseason.
Yeah, first-year starter, a lot of times you need to have that Pro Bowl type year, and then the following year is when you get it, right? But with this offensive line kind of being the calling card of the team, it's easy to see why he was in there. A lot of people said, well, why not Quinyon Mitchell? He's a rookie. It feels like people have been sleeping on him all season. So I'm not surprised that Mitchell didn't make it. He'll probably make it in other years. I saw some people saying A.J. Brown snubbed. He missed 3 games. He has, I just quickly Googled it. He has 67 receptions. He broke 1,000 yards, which is great. But 67 receptions in the NFL in 2024 ain't ain't great, right? And again, he missed time. If he doesn't miss time, he's probably a Pro Bowler. Remember the prop before the season that of both players hitting 1,000 yards, both Devontae and A.J. Brown hitting 1,000 yards again. And I remember saying there would have to be injuries for both players not to reach 1,000 yards. Well, they had injuries, and Devontae Smith isn't going to reach 1,000 yards. So, yeah, so no real surprise there. I guess the only Jordan Mailata. There was a lot of talk yesterday in the locker room about Jordan Mailata not making the Pro Bowl. I mean, I'm fine with that. I think he's a really good player, but there's also a lot of other good tackles. I don't know, like me evaluating the offensive line position. A lot of time you're doing this based on reputation. So Lane Johnson's probably going to be a Pro Bowler until he stops playing or until the wheels fall off, right? Like Jason Peters, it felt like for a while was making it just because he was Jason Peters. And he kept playing, and it's like, okay, we can't put you in the Pro Bowl anymore, homie.
Well, there's always going to be an element of that when fans have a portion of the vote. It does, like Pro Bowls, MLB All-Star games, when fans have a portion of the vote, it is a popularity contest to an extent.
Yes.
Like, I know the extreme example is like Mike Schmidt got elected to the All-Star game 6 weeks after he retired, right? Like, those things happen, and you get in on merit at some point, but you also have to be that guy to get to the merit status. And they've done a pretty good job. I think Lane Johnson's done a pretty good job of being that guy consistently. When you talk about the best right tackles in football, he's still amongst the best right tackles in football.
Absolutely.
In top 2 or 3 every single year, even as he ages a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely he is. Sure. So, like, yeah, Mailata probably snubbed or whatever, but it's, it's kind of. So, I mean, they got six players in there. The obvious ones were there. Jalen Hurts was injured or ineffective for at least as a thrower for some of the season, so he wasn't going to make it. All right, so playoff scenarios, and we'll talk more about this when we give our locks coming up in a little bit. So you have 2 Saturday games this week. The Ravens and the Browns are the first game. Ravens and the Browns are the first, as my wife texts me while I'm on the air, as if this is something that she needs to text me while I'm on the air. Nothing new here. But so Ravens and Browns are the first game. That's the 4:30 game. The Ravens are 20 and a half point favorites over the Browns. The Ravens need this to lock it up. And because of the first game, so the Ravens know if they come out and they win, they lock up the division, they get the number 3 seed. Also, Bailey Zappi is going to get the start with Dorian Thompson-Robinson also playing. So, I mean, no real surprise what's going to happen in this game. The Ravens are going to win. They're going to clinch the number 3 seed. Now, the second game's interesting. They go all AFC North on Saturday. The Steelers and the Bengals. So the scenarios for this game, the Steelers need a win, but only need a win for the division if the Ravens were to lose. So they're going to know coming into the game, if the Ravens lose, then they're playing for the division. That is so unlikely to happen, but they're still playing for seeding. So if they want to be the number 5 seed, then they have to beat the Bengals. So Steelers-Bengals in Pittsburgh, the Bengals are 2-point favorites on the road, which is interesting. Now, the Bengals need to win to keep their playoff hopes alive. However, they're very slim because the Bengals would not only have to win on Saturday, then there would have to be the Dolphins losing and the Broncos losing for the Bengals to make the playoffs. And Kansas City's not going to play their starters. So it seems unlikely that the Bengals are going to make the playoffs. But still, the Steelers. So here's the interesting thing with the Steelers. If the Steelers were to win, then they lock in a first round game against the Texans. If they were to lose, then they would play the Ravens on the road. For me, that's real incentive. If it's like, we lose and it doesn't really, no, like they will probably be favorites. I would think they'd be favorites against the Texans, depending. And if they get blown out by the Bengals, maybe the wheels fall off and it's like, no, the Texans are going to be favored. So the Steelers, I think the Steelers can easily win that first round matchup. Even though it's a division game and it's the Ravens and they've had success against Lamar Jackson, that's a much tougher matchup. So that's that scenario right there. Bucks against the Saints. So the Bucks win. They're in. They have a chance at the number 1 seed. and that's if the Rams were to lose, and the Rams aren't playing their starters. So, I mean, the Bucs and the Saints, you would think that the Bucs are going to blow the doors off the Saints. Falcons and Panthers. Falcons, and they're playing at the same time as the Bucs. You know how the NFL does this. They play the games at the same time because otherwise, if the Bucs were to win the game and they play the Falcons the next game, then they know whether or not the game matters, right?
Yeah, they started doing this probably. I mean, it feels like it's a long time ago now.
Probably
but
10 years.
If you remember the year that the Eagles went to the NFC Championship game in 2008, they needed like 9 things to go right. Was it 2008? But it was
yes, and it happened.
They needed like 9 things to go right, including the Raiders to beat the Bucs, I believe it was, or something along those lines.
Got whacked after that.
Yeah, and then it happened, and then the Eagles had something to play for, and they decimate the Cowboys. Now, if that were to happen, they probably would have had the Eagles-Cowboys at 1 o'clock with those other games because they don't want – because if the inverse scenario is one of those things doesn't happen, Eagles-Cowboys doesn't mean a thing.
Nope.
You know, in that scenario.
Yeah, no, you're right. It seems pretty simple, but they got it right. So Falcons are going to play at the same time. If the Bucs lose and the Falcons win, the Falcons get the number 4 seed and they win the division. Cowboys and Commanders. Washington wins. They avoid the Eagles and they get the number 6 seed, which you would think would be important. But I think, they're going to come out and blow the doors off the Cowboys. Packers and Bears. Packers need to win, and then the Washington would need to lose. Otherwise, the Packers don't control their own destiny. If Washington wins, the Packers are going to be the number 7 seed. They'll play the Eagles. Patriots and Bills, nothing there other than draft pick scenario. Titans and Texans. Texans are totally locked in the number 4 seed. Eagles, Giants, we know. Colts, Jaguars, nothing. Broncos need to win, and they're in. So if they win, they're the number 7 seed. The Chiefs are locked into the number 1 seed. Our old buddy Carson Wentz, the LTBB, the Wentz wagon. I'm interested in this game just to see what Wentz looks like out there with Andy Reid coaching and an Andy Reid offense. So that'll be interesting. Broncos are big favorites in the game. And then the Jets and the Dolphins. So the Dolphins, even though I think Tyler Huntley's going to end up playing, the Dolphins need a Broncos loss, and then they control their own destiny. So if Miami wins and the Broncos lose, the Dolphins are in. As I mentioned before, the Bengals need the Dolphins and the Broncos to lose and them to win to get in. Raiders and Chargers. Chargers could get the number 5 seed with a win and a Steelers loss. So again, the Steelers really do have something to play for here. And here's the other thing with the Steelers, and we're talking about it with the locks coming up here. The Steelers have been sliding, man. They've lost 3 straight games, and there's been a lot of talk about how they're going to be toast. So we'll talk about that game coming up in the locks. So the Rams need to win to lock up the number 3 seed. Seahawks are out of it, but they're not going to play their starters. Sean McVay said he's, quote, excited about watching Blake Corum get a heavy workload this week. So you're going to be playing backups, even though the number 3 seed would mean playing a much different team. So you're playing the Lions or the Vikings if you're the number 4 seed, right? Yeah.
I'm a little perplexed by this one because, and maybe they feel like they're going to play we feel like we can beat anybody card. You know, we believe in our guys in house. It's us versus the world. Whatever cliche they'll use, they'll use it. This one's a little bit perplexing because I think that the best wild card team definitively is going to be whoever loses this Sunday night game. It's going to be the Lions or it's going to be the Vikings. Like, not to say that Washington or Green Bay are bad teams. They're not. They are good football teams who are deserving of being in the playoffs. But if you ask me, would I rather play Minnesota or Detroit or Washington or Green Bay? I'm taking Washington and Green Bay.
Is it worth playing your starters for seeding? And people are giving Nick Sirianni crap because he wants to rest the starters in a game that doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. Except
for a record. Meanwhile, Sean McVay's resting his starters to where you could face either the Vikings and Lions or you could face the Commanders or the Packers.
Yeah, this one I'm a little bit perplexed at this one.
It's odd. It really is. But, what do I know? Sean McVay's a genius. And then you have, obviously...
That's what they keep telling us.
They keep telling us. Cardinals and Niners. And then Sunday night, talking about a dream scenario. The Lions and Vikings for the number 1 seed on Sunday Night Football. And Tyler has a pick on that coming up. We'll give our locks. Coming up, we have our intern Daulton stat of the day. But our locks, who do we have this week? Ooh, stay tuned. We'll discuss right after this. Philly with John Marks. Don't go anywhere. Yeah, Rothman. So listen, New Year's resolutions, it's just like, I don't know, going to the gym at the beginning of January. It's like, all right, I won't be going by February, right? But like New Year's resolutions can be good. So if you have a knee that's been giving you a problem, or your elbow or your shoulder or your back, and you're just kind of living with it, right? And you're like, well, whatever. Like I'm old, or it's just like, it'll get better. And it doesn't get better. I had something similar with my shoulder. I don't know how long I waited, probably over a year, to where I finally ended up going to Rothman. So if you have something that's going on, maybe it's a hand, back, knee, elbow, ankle, hip, do yourself a favor. Do it like a semi-New Year's resolution. Just make an appointment at Rothman, because you don't know how easy it can be. Like it was for me. This shoulder gave me just fits, sleeping. My range of motion was crap. I couldn't even get to the top of my pantry to get my kids cereal, all right? And then a simple appointment with a Rothman doc, and it's like you have a frozen shoulder. Go do some PT. Did physical therapy at Rothman. 6 weeks of physical therapy a couple times a week. The shoulders felt 100% since then. So if you're having an issue, just telling you, Rothman, and you're not just going to some run-of-the-mill place, right? They have physicians that specialize in all areas of the body. So ankle, foot, elbow, shoulder, knee, spine, whatever it is, they have an expert for whatever specific area of the body that you have an issue with. So from the time you go in, from diagnosis to discharge, they provide their patients with amazing service, x-rays, orthodontics, bracing, MRIs, physical therapy, and more. Year after year, Rothman consistently performs among the highest volume of hip, knee, shoulder, and ankle replacements in the country. Over 60,000. It's not just the volume, it's their commitment to improving each of your lives through their service and care. And that's really what it is. Like my shoulder bothered me every day for probably 2 years. I did nothing about it. Do yourself a favor. Visit Rothman Orthopedics, specialized in orthopedics and you. RothmanOrtho.com/PHLY to learn more and to make an appointment today. All right, Glad Hair Restoration. I was actually talking with my girl Cheryl over at the Glad Hair Restoration team. Over 30 years of experience in hair restoration. That's what they offer. That means you're getting the best in the business, the most experience, the most success. Just so you know, Glad Hair Restoration by Morgenstern Medical is the #1 hair restoration group in the country. Expert team, unmatched system, state-of-the-art location. The results are amazing, all right? And they have something for all stages of hair loss. Leading-edge treatments for prevention and restoration. So we talk about the hair restoration procedure that I got done, all right? So there's that. It's also prevention. So if you're going bald, you're starting to go bald, you're shedding hardcore, maybe you're starting to lose it here, you're starting to lose it here. Well, the best course of treatment may not be full hair restoration, or not hair restoration yet. There's a lot of treatments out there that can maybe help you not get to hair restoration, right? PRP and stem cell, as we improve with science, and technology has improved greatly and science has improved greatly with this. Something called a TED treatment, which I get every year, which is PRP without needles, it just kind of really improves right here. The thinning and the shedding that I have right here is amazing now. Vitamin supplementation is very popular these days, but each patient receives a complimentary one-on-one consultation, and they're your advocate. You're not walking in the door and they're saying like, oh, hey, yeah, you need hair restoration. No. From the first phone call to the last follow-up visit, they are there for you. They know this decision is very important, and they want to help make your experience simple and stress-free. Not just about restoration, it's about innovation. Call Glad Hair right now. Tell them you heard it on PHLY. Tell them, hear Johnny Marks talk about you all the time. 610-980-4000. 610-980-4000, or the website with my before and after pictures and much more. Glatt Hair MCTR. That's GLAT Hair MCTR.com. Also, and you can do this whenever with anything, but in particular, reach out to me, slide into my DMs, send me an email, JONNYMARKS MARKS Media on all socials, and my email at gmail.com. And I can talk to you one-on-one. I can hand you off to my friends over at Glad Hair, and I can answer any questions, etc. GladHairMCTR.com. All right. So, Tyler, as we go into our final, man, we've done this now 17 times. It feels like yesterday that we started this, Tyler Zulli. But this is the final week, at least the regular season, of our NFL locks.
Yep. This season flew by.
Really
absolutely flew by.
It's been fun. It has. I've started off slow. I've got cooking a little bit here. I've been good on the Eagles for the most part.
Yeah, you've had a couple of good weeks in a row.
I have. It's gotten me over. It's got my head above water. So this week, here's my opinion on things. Here'd be my advice. Because based on what happens on Saturday and is going to be what could happen on Sunday, right? So if let's say that the Steelers lose, or let's say the Bengals lose. Well, I mean, it could affect things on Sunday based on what happens on Saturday, right? So it gives some extra incentive for teams. So, like, for example, we'll just go into my picks right here. I'll give the Eagles game at the end because, like, what are we even talking about here? But the Steelers and the Bengals. Now, the Bengals need this game to even be alive for the games on Sunday. But the Steelers, to me, the Bengals need a win to keep their slim playoff hopes alive. But the Steelers already clinched a playoff spot. But not only do they need this win for the 5th seed, the top wild card, but doesn't it feel like that the Steelers, even with already being in the playoffs, their season's kind of hanging on by a string? They've lost 3 straight games. I don't know if people saw George Pickens. He was asked about if he was on the same page with his quarterback, Russell Wilson, because Russell had said they weren't on the same page on a particular route that he ran. And he just put like his hat over like his eyes or something. It's really weird. But if there's ever been a Mike Tomlin game for the Steelers, it's Saturday. Every time I'm ready to write the Steelers their eulogy and say, yep, they might have made the playoffs, but it's over. They're going to lose, and then they're going to lose to the Ravens. You just can't kill them. You can't kill the Steelers. So the Steelers aren't winning the Super Bowl, but I think they beat the Bengals. Russell Wilson threw for over 400 yards in their first meeting this week. This is a Mike Tomlin response game for the Steelers. The Bengals have a chance to make the playoffs, but the Steelers need this game to avoid the Ravens. And then if they get a first-round matchup against the Texans, they're beating the Texans, or they have a much better chance of beating the Texans than the Ravens. I'm going to take the Steelers. Even though this line is screaming Bengals, I think Vegas is off on this line. I'm going to take the Steelers +2 over the Bengals. So that's the first game on Saturday. Bucks and the Saints. Tampa Bay can still get the number 3 seed if they win and the Rams lose. So, again, the Rams, they don't even seem like they're playing for anything. Seattle's big favorites at this point, or 3.5 points favorites, I think, at this point. Maybe it even went up more. But, I feel like Tampa is going to come out. The Saints are terrible. They're cooked. And the Bucs are going to come out. They're a high-powered offense. Baker Mayfield has really developed into a really good quarterback. I think they come out and they put a beating on the Saints early. So I would like to see what this line looks like in the first half, but we don't do that here. So I would take the Bucs. There's a slight worry about a backdoor cover. The Bucs go up 30-10, and in the fourth quarter, there's a couple garbage touchdowns late by the Saints, and it costs them. But I'll take the Bucs -13.5 over the Saints. And then the Cardinals and the Niners. This game, there are no implications in the playoffs. Both teams are eliminated. Brock Purdy's also not playing. The Niners have had a terrible season after they were in the Super Bowl last year. They just want this season to be over with. There's nobody that's coming out and saying, we got to finish strong. We got to finish strong. I don't buy that at all. The Cardinals, meanwhile, are a younger team. Jonathan Gannon, lesser established coach. Like, this game means more to the Cardinals to finish strong than it does to the Niners. And they have their starting quarterback, and their starters are going to be playing. So I think this is actually an easy Cardinals cover. Even though they've lost 5 of their last 6 games, and they were in control of the division, and they've totally screwed their season. It just feels like to me this game means a hell of a lot more for the Cardinals. So I'll take the Cardinals -4.5 over the Niners, who are going to be playing their backup and literally just want this season to be over. It's been a disaster. So my record on the season, as you can see, not only am I over 21 game over 500, I'm 8 games over 500 with the Eagles, making me 9 games over 500 total. And I'm going to finish strong this week.
That's not, I mean, 38-29 is a darn good year. If you went 38-29 and actually put money on all of these, you'd be ahead. Pretty sizable margin.
Well, if I put money on it, I'd be 29.
Well, yeah, you'd be 7-48.
And my Eagle, I'm taking the Giants. Is it 2.5 or is it down to 2?
Let's go to BetParks. We'll find the exact line for you.
I don't remember if it went down to 2 or 2.5. But anyway, regardless, I'm taking the Giants. Giants win this game. They played so hard last week to beat the Colts, and that game mattered. They're playing their starters. They actually have a lot of talent. Malik Neighbors, backups. I think the Giants win this game relatively easy. So I'm going to take the Giants, and I'll take the points.
It is, well, not making it easy.
Well, whatever.
For me to find
I'll look while you give your picks here, because Tyler Zuli's been handing out free money all season
2.5.
long.
Yeah, Eagles are -2.5.
I'll take the 2.5. Book it right now.
All right, so I will give you mine here. I think that I'm gonna, I have them in the middle, but I'm gonna start with them first because you already talked about it. I'm also taking Tampa Bay at 13.5. The Bucs have something to play for. The Saints stink. I think the Bucs could roll in this one. The Bucs rolled last week in their win. Their offense is just, it's on fire right now, as you mentioned. Baker Mayfield has been excellent. They scored 48 on Carolina last week. I think they dropped 40 on the Chargers 3 weeks ago. They have that loss to Dallas in between, but I'm going to take the Bucs in this one. I think that they win this one handily. The only thing that concerns me, John, is that let's say the Bucs are up 20 with like 4 minutes to play, and all of the starters come out, and the Saints backdoor cover with the touchdown, and they lose by like 13. But I think that the Bucs are going to run away with this one. I hate that hook, but I'll take it just because that's what we're getting. Washington has something to play for, I think. I think Washington does not want to have to play the Eagles in the first round. It makes sense because if your option is playing either the Rams, who are a good team, or the winner of the South, who is the Bucs, they're also a good team, assuming the Bucs win, or the Eagles, I think you'd rather take your chances with those two teams as opposed to playing the Eagles. Now, the Bucs have played much better as of late. So have the Rams. The Rams have won 4 in a row. They've been a much better team in the second half of the season. But if your options are the Eagles or those two teams, I think you're going to take those two teams. Washington, I think, controls its own destiny in this idea. If they believe they'd prefer to play those two teams over the Eagles, I do think they'll come out and beat Dallas, even if it's on the road, by more than a touchdown. Dallas was terrible in Sunday's game against the Eagles, which is kind of strange because they had played some decent football leading up to that point over some of the other teams that they played. They beat the Bucs the week prior, as we were just talking about. They had kind of found an identity of getting the ball out quickly, running the ball well, good offensive line play. None of that worked against the Eagles. I don't expect the Washington to win 41-7, but I do expect them to win this game by more than a touchdown. Now,
go ahead, finish with your Eagle stuff.
Yeah, and here's the game that I had to take one game that like really, really mattered. And every time I try to doubt Minnesota, every time I say it's Sam Darnold, it's this, it's that, are they really that good? They tell me, yeah, they're really that good. They are in a position to go on the road and clinch the #1 overall seed. Obviously, so is Detroit if they win this game. Detroit's defense is banged up. We know that Detroit can score with the best of them. Their offense is elite. But the thing that gives me pause in this one, and the thing that makes me believe that not only do the Vikings cover the 3-point line, but the Vikings win this game outright on the road, is their run defense. Jahmyr Gibbs has been amazing all year, and even better since David Montgomery's injury. The Vikings give up 3.9 yards a carry. They've given up the third least, tied for the third least amount of touchdowns with the Eagles on the ground at 9. They've given up only 3 rushes of 20 or more yards and only 1 rush of 40 or more yards. They've only given up 74 first downs on the ground all year. Only Baltimore is more. They are the second best run defense in the NFL behind the Baltimore Ravens in most statistical categories. I think if they can do a good job of bottling up Jahmyr Gibbs as best as they can, Not to say that it becomes any easier because the Lions' pass offense is just as good. I think the Vikings are not only going to cover this game, I think they're going to win this game and win the North.
Wow. Of course, I took a meaningless game with the Cardinals, but I would agree with you on the Vikings. And what's your Eagles pick?
Yeah, I'm gonna take Buffalo over Liberty -3 instead of the Eagle. No, I'll take the you know what? Here's the thing: the Giants should lose this game because of their draft capital. They've proven to you they don't care.
No, not at all.
By beating the Colts the way that they did. I think the Giants probably win this game because they're incapable of even tanking correctly, apparently. They're going to cost themselves some significant draft capital by winning these last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I'm also going to take the Giants with the points, but this game means like so little to me. I really, you know what I mean? Like, this is the first time I'm not deep diving why I'm taking a team. I'm just taking the Giants because I feel like this game means nothing to the Eagles.
Yeah, they're playing for whatever reason they're playing for something. The Giants are dumb. They should have just started cutlets.
Yeah,
and they'd have the first overall pick.
I don't know exactly what their plan is, but apparently it's not draft a quarterback in the first round.
Or they're going to have to trade up for
or
it.
give up the draft capital to do it.
So Minnesota, it's interesting because you have two quarterbacks that were written off in Sam Darnold and Jared Goff that are now playing for the number 1 seed. It'd be unbelievable if Detroit, who has been the best team in the NFL all season long, becomes a wild card team in the final week of the season. But it's crazy.
Yeah, Minnesota's on a 9-game winning streak right now. They've played some,
God, man.
They've played some tight games to pull out victories at the end, but they've also played.
They're not fluky. I feel like they were flukier the year that the Eagles beat them in the NFC Championship game. This is a good team.
It's a really good team.
It is. I think Washington. You said you're not expecting 41-7. I'm expecting 41-7. I don't know why I didn't pick the game, but it feels like the younger team in Washington, like they know they're in the playoffs and they just want to kick everybody's ass. So I like that pick right there. What was your other one that I think the Bucks?
Oh, and I'm in agreement with you with the Bucks. I just think they've got something to play for. They're going to win this game.
And the Falcons, and I think that the Falcons, you worry that they look up at the scoreboard and they say, oh, well, the Bucks are up by 30 points and they take their foot off the gas. But Michael Penix is out there trying to, he's obviously like, they're not sitting Michael Penix because the game's over and they can't win or whatever. So anyway. All right, well, there you go. Tyler also giving out free money. I have a chance to, with the playoff picks, I have a chance to catch you. We're only a couple games separated now as we head into the playoffs. All right, we end every Friday. We bring in our intern.
Don't bury the lead. I missed 3 weeks. Come on now.
Did you miss 3?
I missed at least 2.
Well, but you also missed 2 weeks of not losing games.
This is true.
So, I mean, your wife could have been pushing and you could have been texting me your selections. But anyway, so we wrap up every week on Philly with John Marks with intern Daulton and his stat of the week. And we'll bring him on right now. And before we speak to him, we have to say goodbye to all our people watching on TV. Go to ALLPHLY to watch the rest of the show. AllPHLY.com to watch the rest of the show. So there we go. Intern Daulton, Happy New Year, buddy. How are you?
Happy New Year, John. I'm doing well. How are you?
Good, man. What do you got this week for your stat of the week?
So with Saquon breaking the 2,000-yard rushing mark, I thought I'd look up some of those 2,000-yard rushers and see what they did in the playoffs. Ooh. And to warn you right now, John, it's not very good.
Oh, no. All right. Very interesting. All right. What do you got?
So I picked out 4 guys. And so first one's going to be Derrick Henry. He had played in 1 playoff game, 18 attempts for 40 yards, and he averaged 2.2 yards per attempt. Then you have Adrian Peterson, which is 1 playoff game, 22 attempts for 99 yards and 4.5 yards per attempt. Then you have Eric Dickerson, who played in 1 playoff game that year, 23 attempts for 107 yards and 4.7 yards per attempt. And then the only exception is Terrell Davis, who did go on to win the Super Bowl that year. They broke 2,000 yards. They played in 3 games, had 78 attempts for 468 yards, and he averaged 6 yards per attempt.
That team was rolling that year. it is interesting. With Saquon, the entire season has been the offense runs through Saquon, the offense runs through Saquon. As we've learned in the playoffs in the NFL in the past, what wins in the regular season doesn't necessarily win in the playoffs. And it is mildly concerning that Jalen Hurts still isn't out of concussion protocol. And if you want to run the same kind of offense in the playoffs, you may not be able to do the same thing. So I'll be curious to see exactly how it looks and who they're playing. But all right, well, we'll talk to you next week before the Eagles play in their playoff game. If you had a preference, Intern Daulton, who would you want the Eagles to play in the first round?
For me, I don't really think it matters. I think both teams, whether it's the Commanders or Packers, they're both good teams, and they could beat the Eagles easily. So, I'd probably rather take the Packers, but for me, it doesn't really matter. They're both going to be tough.
Good answer. Very good answer. Intern Daulton with the stat of the week. Thank you, buddy. We'll talk to you next week.
See you next week, guys.
All right. There he is. Well, everybody, have a great weekend. Are you on with Jamie again today there?
Yep. Yeah,
Zuli.
As soon as you and I are done, I'm going to run over there and try to get in before the first ad break because apparently I have to help pay the bills around here.
All right. So switch over to Anthony Gargano's show. Jamie is on right now. Tyler's going to slide. Did you do the Collinsworth slide over into the...
So the first time we did it last week, I tried to do the Collinsworth slide. I'm like, yo, this is going to be funny. And we have carpet over there.
Yeah, it's hard
and the
to slide.
chair just didn't go anywhere. I just looked like an idiot.
Everybody have a great weekend. Be safe, and we'll talk to you on. Listen, we'll know what's going on Monday next time we join you. Shout out to all the mad chatters on there, everybody that watches live on YouTube every morning. And you can always listen to the podcast just wherever the audio podcast. You can just wherever you get your podcast. Search Philly with John Marks. And we'll be back on Monday live at 8 a.m. See ya.
We all silly like the mayor.